3.
I don't remember what I did. Do I click
That's
on
what we're
the
doing in
three?
a couple seconds, already.
Okay, there it goes.
There you go. Mr. Chairman, you're good to go.
We call the June 11th Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Gray,
Yep.
Tupin. Eccles Bell.
Yes.
Boise,
Here,
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto,
Here.
Bloomer.
Here. Okay, all had a copy of the minutes here. I have some corrections that are clarifications that, before I ask for a motion to approve, are there any from the board?
I didn't see any.
Okay, the clarification that, I want to make sure that it's Tupin, Di Benedetto, and Gray were given, excused absences to attend the urban renewal, workshop. And so I'm not sure if they should be called absent. I mean, they were on assignment from us.
Or we should just say excused absent. If-
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it says all absent members were excused per agreement, 14th.
Put a parentheses that says they were on
And when it
assignment
says
from planning
absent,
board.
it's a technicality, by our bylaws, if you miss X, whether excused or not, you miss X number of meetings, you are in some
Yeah.
level of jeopardy, that's all I'm saying.
We can just add a parenthetical statement that says does not count against absences because they were on assignment from
That's
planning
right.
board.
That's right. But, like I said, if somebody wants to read our bylaws and look at our minutes, they could, and actually, there are some people that do that kind of stuff, so.
Are you good with that addition?
Yeah, Jeff, are you good with that?
I didn't hear what the addition was.
The addition was a clarification that you, Chelsea, and John were excused on assignment, from the planning board.
It says specifically, does not count against absences due to being on assignment from the planning board and zoning commission.
Yeah, I just think it'd be good to clarify that we were excused to attend the urban renewal area public meeting.
Yeah,
Good idea.
Yeah.
or just at the end of that, to attend the urban renewal.
Oh, did I say that?
Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
We added that last little bit part to the description too, Jeff.
Yeah.
Sounds
Well, it says
good.
here, all these members were excused per agreement, but anyway, any other issues?
I would move to approve the minutes with that correction.
I
a
need-
second.
Have a move, Conley, second, Foisey. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yeah.
Tupin.
Yes.
Eccles Bell.
Yes.
Boise,
Yes,
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto,
Abstain?
Bloomer.
Yes. Okay, communications from the board, Urban Renewal Agency update. I sent you all, hopefully received it. Jeff wrote a brief summary of the meeting. Jeff, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, or you want to just have it part of the written record, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I think that's probably good enough. Chelsea might also have some comments relative to her impression, but basically what I wrote was a brief summary of how the public meeting went, and I thought it was probably one of the better organized public meetings that I'd been to in terms of how to solicit public comments and how to try to elicit out of them what their vision of an outcome might be in the urban renewal area. The Kansas State University Brownfields group is scheduled to submit a report. We'll probably receive that maybe around the end of June, early July. They also intend to conduct another public poll to elicit, additional comments from the public. And then, just kind of close out, the last thing we did with them was tour the old, brewery building or, cannery, and it was pretty impressive. What those folks are doing with that building, and it's a good example of how to restore and repurpose a historic building. So if anybody has any questions, I'll address them. but-
Chelsea, do you have anything to add to that?
I think a summary was pretty well covers it. I don't think, there was only one thought that I had was there is, the mention of mixed commercial and residential uses, commercial that does not compete with downtown businesses. I don't know if that was a consensus, so I just feel like that's worth mentioning. It was specifically a downtown business, and Sherry Weimer mentioned it, so otherwise didn't hear really any feedback on that. But I think there's a lot of folks that still would like to see more down there. It doesn't necessarily have to be limited.
Yeah. Sandy?
How well attended was it? How many people do you estimate were there?
About 60, does that seem right? It was pretty well attended.
Yeah. Were there any, what you call, what I would call aha comments or aha moments? Because as I read this, we've heard a lot of this
Yeah.
before.
And it's a lot of the same folks that you've been seeing at those meetings. Again, people that you see at the downtown meetings, the growth policy meetings, it's a lot of that
Yeah.
same group and collective. A few unfamiliar faces that were through there that are probably more specific to the urban renewal district. I don't think there was a whole lot of aha moments. I think it was more so recognizing the challenges and the concerns of doing it right the first time or figuring out the right process to do it was a big thing that came out of it. And again, you're gonna have a lot of different opinions and a lot of different views and people wanting to do different things with it and how you come together on that. I feel like there's a lot of ideas for the future of it, not a lot of how you get there.
How much time was really spent on workforce housing? Because that was one of the key issues that really pushed the approval of that district.
So there, again, we didn't really spend time on certain subjects.
Yeah.
The way that this format was, is again, there was small discussions at each table. I think that it was collective where everyone wanted to see that as an opportunity, but I think the majority of input heard was more so sidewalks, trees, walkways, beautifying it, making sure it's cohesive coming into town.
Yeah.
And again, making sure that there is that mixed residential and commercial use out there. But yeah, it's a lot of the same faces that we've seen throughout, so I don't think we hammered home on workforce housing, because we've already done that every other day.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for either of these folks? Very good. City Council, Chelsea, anything pertinent to us?
Basically the same stuff I've said before. We're working on focusing on annexation and that process and land use and planning, but that's a little bit out on the horizon. There's discussion on Pride Park and that resolution, but I don't think there's really anything in terms of planning board.
Okay, good.
There was a small, this land swap that we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about, the piece that we're trading ends up being right up on the bench. And so we're gonna have to take a really good look at zoning and how useful that land is, even though he says he doesn't plan to build on it. But we need to take a look at the zoning of that.
Yeah, currently it's park zoning, so again.
Where is this?
It's up on Airport Road, so Greg O'Neill's property there on the hill, the big house,
Between the road and the
like
bench.
where the gravel pit is.
It's one of those queued responses that you have to look at from the zoning
Okay,
standpoint.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm just, all right.
Anyway, so that's gonna be kind of,
Yeah, just
Okay,
double checking that zoning when we're going through that process.
okay. Marnie, County,
I don't have anything really.
okay. Mayor, anything in?
The only thing I had was that land swap is slated for action at the next meeting, and again, that's one of those 3 requests that you guys already had queued up for two
It's
requests.
scheduled for our next planning
Three.
board meeting?
Well, it's scheduled for when you guys get to the zoning stuff.
Okay.
Is that something that, I know that the city council was asking about other uses for that land? Is that something we should look at prior to that?
The approving it?
Before we approve?
I don't think, because zoning could, even if, no matter what, if, right now, we make the decision based off of what it is,
Right.
but it is understood that it's very possibly going to change.
Okay,
But you don't make decisions based on what ifs or hows, and you don't hold it off until those decisions get made, in my opinion. So, like I said, I'm looking to this body to give input on the highest and best use. The only other thing that I will add is that there was, one that was mentioned last time from the county, a subdivision. I think it's actually tied into the same conversation. They came out as a question about the road, and basically a continued easement across Waterworks Road. We didn't have a problem with that. There was another request about tapping into our water, and the feedback that we gave was that the city is not interested in letting non-city residents utilize city resources.
Yeah, makes sense.
been there, done that.
Okay. All right, moving on to new business. We had asked WWC, as we take on our next challenge, of reviewing our zoning document. It was done back in 2022. Jeremy or Greg, do you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah, I think Jeremy is gonna take this one.
What we're looking for is just a basic plan on how you feel it's the most efficient way to approach this. I've got notes on specific things that the city has asked us to do, but I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some conversations over the last few months on zoning regulation updates. Obviously, wanted to get through the growth policy and the downtown master plan discussions first. So I mean, the next step is really to kind of, I guess, get some direction from the planning board on how you want to, tackle that. Our recommendation in talking with Dave and Al, and Greg and Brian is that, WWC basically take the lead and essentially mark up the current zoning regulations with our recommendations. I guess one of the big things that's come out with talks with Al and staff and Dave is that, it'd be good to simplify the regulations. Right now we have for a small city like Red Lodge, there's a lot going on in your regulations. And I think there could be some simplification. I think we could combine some of the residential zoning districts into, a couple of residential zoning districts, for example, those sorts of things. But, we haven't dove into that specifically yet, just some ideas. And so, the other part of that is there are some legislative changes that have come out the last couple of years that we need to incorporate a few tweaks to the regulations. Most recently, the biggest one I can think of off the top of my head is the legislature this session passed some parking requirements that are now in zoning law. And so we need to make sure that our parking requirements are in line with state law requirements now. For example, cities with zoning can only require one parking space per dwelling unit now, and a lot of places require two or one per bedroom, that sort of thing. So we just need to make sure that the parking requirements that we have are in line with the current laws. And then, we've noted several things over the last year on tweaks or changes that need to be made to be more consistent across the document, that sort of thing. So anyway, our recommendation is to have us take the document, make the edits, redline the document essentially, and then provide that and the zoning map updates to the planning board for review. in consideration. So that's our recommendation. So we would just like, I think at this point, we just need some direction from the planning board. The other part of this is we need to have a discussion with Dave on cost. If we're gonna go after any grant funds to do this, this project. One option is we go after some CDBG planning grant funds, and we can do the zoning and subdivision regulation updates concurrently at the same time with some grant funds. So there's some options out there, but we do need to talk with Dave about cost for this work and how best to proceed that route as well. So anyway, that's
I remember an earlier conversation. I'm not remembering the part where I said no to grants.
no, I didn't say that. I just said we have that conversation about how best to proceed. I did talk to right now their CDBG is revamping their planning grants. There were CDBG planning grants, and so there's no opportunity currently to apply for CDBG planning grants. The response I got today from them was the new process is currently in review, and then we have to change the administrative rules. And that process takes a while to change the administrative rules. So I suspect we would maybe have an opportunity to submit an application this fall for grant funds through CDBG. But it may be next year by the time they get through this process as well. So
The question is, do we want to wait a year until we get grant funds? And I think the answer there is no.
right. So
Did I read between the lines, or is there something I'm missing?
no, I mean, that's exactly right. I guess we just need to have that discussion and, figure
Yeah, I
out
think
the
the grant
best path
discussion
forward
is
and then,
Our
Yeah.
purview.
I think where it applies to this meeting is, no, we're not gonna put this process off for a year to wait for grant money,
Right.
because we can't.
And I'm gonna just poll the board right now in terms of, making sure our list of bullet points that we really wanna attack, that we start to put that together for you before you start doing your review. And maybe, see what we have tonight, but maybe by the next meeting, come up with what we think there is a specific concern within the document.
Put off subdivision.
I've got a list here, but, Jeff, are there any particular areas in the zoning document that you want WWC to spend some time on?
well, if I
Well, I
could,
think it's,
Yeah,
Sorry,
the
Jeremy.
go
areas
ahead.
that we identified.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Jeremy, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say,
go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff, all
Okay.
right, Jeff, go ahead. Where did I
Um,
lose control?
yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we've documented a couple of those things like Jeremy suggested that we needed to tackle. Some clarification on wording for ADUs, was one that comes to mind right now. So I think we've got a list of those. The
Yeah, we
only-
do, but what I'm asking is, I want it to be part of the record, because we got lists scattered all over the place. I'm trying to be concise here, so we know where we're at. So ADU is on the list.
Yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind for me right now. I think there was a
All right.
couple of others that I can't think of right now that I know we had worked on signage for downtown at one point that didn't, was another one. I think we also talked a little bit about tightening up the zoning for marijuana businesses, that
Yep.
the non-retail part of that was another one.
Yep. Okay, Jeremy, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I mean, does this bullet point idea something you're interested in or not?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I just for efficiency purposes, so we're not taking up a whole meeting with everybody throwing stuff out. I think it would be more efficient, and if everybody, just reviews the zoning and the things that we've talked about over the last year and
Yeah.
come up with a list and get that to us.
What I'm telling you is we've kind of done that, but we're gonna give them another 2 weeks. What I had is the marijuana, we want to look at setbacks, the inconsistency in our setbacks. And we've been charged by the, council to, look at a couple of rezoning issues in P1 that we need to look at. ADU I had on my list. Susan? Do you have anything specific?
No.
John? No. Sandy?
Building on city-owned land.
Building on city-owned land? Okay. Marnie?
I don't have anything.
Chelsea?
I'm sure I will.
Okay. All right, that just kind of give you an idea. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them there. And then sometime in the next 2 weeks, if you all come up with something,
Should we all email it to you?
email it to me, please. Yeah.
Who is the keeper of the list? Because I'm thinking also Greg put together a whole list of legal things. It was a half a dozen things for legal compliance that you had identified.
The legal compliance.
You talk about this list. Who's the keeper of the list? Does Jeremy have that, or do you have that?
I'm gonna have it from the board, and I'll get it to Greg and Jeremy.
I wonder if it existed right now, if we could show it, but okay, it doesn't.
Okay, but I just wanted to give WWC some idea of things that have come before us that within that document, we're gonna have to spend some time on. So.
Yeah,
the process-
and I've got, I mean, I've got things too that we've been dealing with Brian with over the last several months as well.
Yeah.
And then, just generally just going basically page by page and by Greg and I to go through the document, look for inconsistencies, make sure we're consistent across all of the chapters, all the sections. Looking for opportunities to try to simplify the regulations, and not make them more cumbersome, and that sort of thing. And so those are the things we're going to be looking at pretty hard as well.
Okay, my question on resimplifying the zoning. Resimplifying the zoning, to me, says we're gonna have fewer zones.
May have fewer pages.
And how does that impact the rezoning discussion?
I mean, I don't know what that looks like right now, so I guess I can't really answer that.
No, but it certainly will.
Yeah,
Will
I mean, it will, but I think we can do what you guys want with less zoning districts. Let's put it that way. Most small towns that we work in, have 1 or 2 residential zoning districts, maybe 2 commercial districts and an industrial district, right? And it's really, a low, medium density residential and a high density residential kind of discussion, right? It's, I think that there's opportunities in your regulations to try and simplify the zoning map and the zoning regulations, so that they're just not as, cumbersome for residents, businesses, and the city staff, right, to interpret and regulate.
Okay, so to be clear, we've kind of given you a taste of some of the areas, but in the next 2 weeks, we'll try to formalize that a little bit, and we'll get that to Greg and Jeremy. I'll be the funnel for the board, if that's okay, so that I'll know, I'd like to know what's going on. And then, is it your idea then that we just let you, whatever time it takes, to go through the entire document?
Yeah,
and then we look at it once you've been through the entire document. Is that what you're thinking?
that would be my preference, would be, let's get you a document that's marked up, and that way you can just start with that. I guess what I want to try to avoid is what we kind of went through with growth policy and downtown master plan, where the planning board is doing a page by page review. I think in some cases that's appropriate, right? And I think in some cases in zoning, you'll want to do that in some areas, but I don't think that applies to the entire document. I think there's some things that are just going to be changes because they're state law. and there's nothing, and you have to do it, right? And there's gonna be some things that are just make sense, or for consistency purposes, we're making a change. But there may be other areas where you do want to spend some time. I'd rather have you focus on the areas where you need to spend some time on, and not a page by page look at the entire document.
And I think we've just identified 6 that are probably gonna take a little discussion, and there'll probably be more, okay?
Yeah, and I'll work with Greg. We'll come up with a cost estimate for Dave on what this is gonna take, and then we'll work on a schedule as well. So that
Yeah,
next
please.
meeting, we can kind of give you an idea of what our schedule is to get you a draft.
I'm anticipating this will take a month or 2. All right, Jeff, are you okay with this?
Yeah, I'm pretty much okay with the way things are lined out, and I think Jeremy kind of laid out a pretty good strategy. I guess, my only, sort of hesitancy is the discussion about, having less zones. I'd really like to see what that looks like, before I comment on that. I think our growth policy kind of lays out some goals and objectives that kind of seem to align them, provide direction for the kind of zoning that we historically have had. I'm not saying that can't be simplified and made a little bit simpler, but as an example, as I think about it a little bit more, there's a distinct difference between the core part of Red Lodge, which I refer to as Old Town, and what the development that's going on up at the benches. And to me, it seems like those sort of lend themselves to a little bit different philosophy in terms of how zoning is designed. And they're unique places. Old Town has a lot of historic housing that's reminiscent of its mining history and the types of housing that exists there. And I would hate to see us implement zoning that would try to modernize that in a way without taking advantage of the residential character of what those old neighborhoods are. So that's my only caution when I hear words about, or hear something about simplifying zoning. They can simplify it to the point that you homogenize the town, and I don't think we want to do that.
I think Jeremy heard you, right?
I understand, Jeff, and that's, I mean, understand that our review will be a redlined version, so, you guys can accept and reject whatever we propose, right? It's just what we'll come back with, but I certainly understand what you're saying, and we'll definitely take all that into account. I mean, I get it, so.
Susan?
And there might be a way to just keep the zones that you have too. I just need to look at it. There might be a way to keep the zones you have, but I've seen zoning regulations, for instance, like in Helena, where it's simplified to the point where they have one table that shows all the zoning districts and the permitted uses in each, a big list of permitted uses essentially. And then in that one table, there's a P for permitted under that district, right? And so it's just outlined in one table that takes up 2 pages. And then they have a section that's like design standards, and then all your other stuff that is required for those districts is in a design standards section. So, I mean, there's ways that we can simplify it without taking out zoning districts as well. So we'll kind of look at all of that and come up with a plan on how best, if it's best to keep them all, we'll keep them all and try to do it simplify it a different way like that.
John?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if you actually have an example, and you came up with one right there.
Okay.
It might be nice to look at an example of another community zoning that you might be using for a reference or trying to aim for, so that way we can kind of plan for that.
Yeah. Marnie?
I mean, zoning is tough because there's tons of different examples out there and they're all different, right? So it really, it has to be tailored. Helena does it one way. you know, I've done it other ways in other small communities, where they're pretty simple, basic zoning regulations. Right, I feel like the current zoning regulations are more in line with a bigger city like Billings and Helena than a smaller town. And so that's just, you know, that's where I'm coming from. I think it's gonna have to be a combination of, you know, trying to simplify it down a little bit for a smaller town, but then also keeping some of the elements you already have, if that makes sense. But I can certainly send out a few examples of, you know, zoning regulations.
Yeah, just a couple of examples for maybe
Yeah.
things that we could take from other zoning
Sure.
codes to tailor it to ours, I think.
Before I get to Jeff, Sandy?
I tend to lean towards Jeff. I mean, the north end of the residential versus the south end of residential, they're different size lots, and we have very specific uses. We have 4 residential zones, maybe we could get it down to 3, but,
Well,
let's
let's
just
just
look
see,
at it,
let's
yeah.
just see what he comes up with.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
exactly,
like, we're kind of
exactly.
getting the cart before the horse here.
yeah, I think that we're jumping ahead.
I want you to hear this discussion because you kind of know what you're facing with, Jeremy, here, but I mean, I think we're on board with what you're doing here. Jeff?
Oh, I was just gonna say that, that example that Jeremy outlined in terms of in terms of simplifying things by having a table that kind of summarizes those things. Just as a reminder, that's something that we attempted to do before we got embedded in the growth policy, as you recall. We tried to come up with a table. So I think, you know, Jeremy's idea is right on in terms of, from the standpoint of simplifying it. You know, I'm on board with that approach for sure.
That's good. Okay, so, we've passed the policy on to the council. I'm hopeful that tonight we're gonna be in the final steps of the downtown master plan. I think our next meeting is the public forum for the master plan. Is that right, Greg?
Yep, public hearing today.
And so hopefully, our next meeting in June, we will have completed our portion of the downtown master plan and send that on to, the council. And so we'll start putting our focus on zoning, Jeremy, in July, August. Does that kind of fit with what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it'll take Greg and I a little bit of time to go through everything and come up with a good, clean draft for you guys to look at. So I would say probably looking at more like, you know, I mean, we could
I'm
certainly
talking
have.
about you working on it in July, August. We may not see it
Yeah,
till September.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. I think that works.
No, not at all. Okay, anything else on the zoning? Is everybody kind of know the direction we're leading? I like the idea of the WWC doing the legwork and letting us do,
Rip it apart.
huh?
We'll rip it apart.
Yeah. Okay, at this point of the agenda, if there's any, our next item in old business is to review the final draft of the downtown master plan. I know we've got some comments from Jeff already. I thought we did a pretty thorough job last week, or last meeting on going through it. But before I open it, reach for public comment, is there anybody, online or in the room that wants to make a comment specific to the downtown master plan?
No one online, no one in the room.
I'm not seeing anything. Anything online? All right, calling for public comment. One more time, hearing none. The public session is closed. So now we'll go to old business. Greg or Jeremy, do you want to lead the discussion on this? Or, Jeff, did you pass your comments on to Greg and Jeremy?
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago I did. The same time.
Okay,
I put them in the
Those
same
are-
document that your comments were on, Al.
okay. You got those, Jeremy? I assume?
Yeah, we got them. They should be incorporated into, I'm gonna let Greg take this one, just because his office and billings and stuff. I mean, I reviewed it and everything, but he's been, working on this one, so I'm gonna let Greg take this one.
Okay, you wanna take us through however you wanna do this?
Yeah,
And then the members of the board will, if we've had additional comments, we will, interrupt you or, wait till you're finished. What do you prefer?
you can just interrupt me.
Okay,
Yeah, so we took, Dave provided his notes from the last
Yeah.
meeting. And then we incorporated those plus, your and Jeff's comments into this draft. Which a lot of them were smaller in nature, like new council member, et cetera. I think one of the not major, but,
yeah, just tell us what page you're on so we can make sure we're following. And
yeah.
Chelsea, you had a comment to go through here, didn't you?
Yes, I had an opportunity.
Okay. And John? Okay.
Most of it was minor text edits that were straightforward.
Can I ask a question? I know that you got Patty Davis as the new council member. Are we going to include Doug Miller as a former city council?
I think that's,
We discussed that.
I think the discussion was no, because he wasn't directly involved.
He hasn't been directly involved with it yet.
Okay,
yeah, he was crossed out on the.
This will be the group
spot.
that approves it.
Right.
That's what we're looking at.
okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. We reformatted all the maps to have them consistent, or the figures.
Reformatted where now?
Just one of the global comments was
Yeah.
consistent formatting, so we got that updated. Page 9 of the document, which is kind of the planning area,
Yeah.
boundary introduction. And Jeff can probably elaborate it on a little more, but the main thing was updating to discuss the transition area. Jeff had comments that was
Right.
a good, breakup, or it was a clarification that was needed.
I had a question on page 6.
Sure.
In the second paragraph, second sentence, we talked about and approximately 5% of the total non-resident visitors. And I thought, my note said that we were gonna do approximately 690,000 of the total in other words, 5% means nothing to anybody, but 690,000 is a really beefy number.
Yeah, so I guess what we did is we broke it up to approximately 5%. And so the reason I was keeping the percentage is because the way we pulled the stat was it gives a percentage, and then I backtracked to get a number.
Oh,
So-
and then you got the number in the next sentence?
Yeah, and so that was to
Okay,
somewhat keep the source a
Okay.
little bit.
okay.
All right, moving on.
And then I thought, I had a note on page 7 after the bottom of the first paragraph, something about, the word is, okay. And a rapid increase in real estate prices. I think the word prices was dropped off.
Okay.
That was my notes.
Okay,
You get that?
yep,
And there was a
Everybody all right with that change? We're gonna add the word prices? Okay.
And there was a whole paragraph in the last draft of 523 underneath the photo that seems to be dropped off completely. Oh, no, you put it above it.
Yeah.
Never mind, you put it above it,
Mhm.
so that's no good. Okay,
I do have one,
Yeah.
that, final sentence for a rapid increase in real estate prices. Can we also include, construction costs after growing population? I think that's important to recognize.
oh, that's true. It was
A
exactly.
rapid increase in real estate and,
So it would read exacerbated by a growing population, an increase or, high construction costs, and a rapid increase in real estate.
a rapid increase in construction cost and in real estate prices.
Yep, that works for me. Yep.
Greg?
yep.
if anybody objects to any of these edits, speak up. If I don't hear anything, I'm assuming we're okay. Okay? You get that?
Yep, got that.
Okay.
I think Jeremy's on the other end taking notes. Okay,
Okay.
On page 9, that second paragraph, says the expanded downtown, extending north to south from Third Street entrance. Wouldn't it be from the Third Street entrance to the 19th Street entrance?
Insert the word the.
Yeah, the word, I kind of debated on entrance, but extending north to south from Third to 19th makes more sense to me. But, we want to use entrance, I don't care.
She wants to insert the word the in front of the 19th.
And in front of Third, if we're gonna do it that way.
Or get rid of the entrance is what she says.
Or
It
get rid
says
of the
from
entrance.
Third Street to 19th Street.
I kinda like that better.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So scratch entrance in both cases.
Yep. And on that second paragraph, I had a note plus Jeff's sentence, but I didn't see, Jeff's sentence. And that's after focus of the, let's see, wait. So that was actually at the end of for the purposes of the plan, after the transition. So did you get Jeff's sentence in there?
I have to check his comments and his word notes. I got a note though to look back at his comments,
Yeah,
to
so
double
that
check.
was my notes.
Okay. Moving on, page 10.
Nothing.
10, 11, 12,
What page is that? You're on there.
this is 13.
And I had a question on 13 because
Well, I wanna make sure, are we caught up to 13 already?
Yeah, I didn't have any
Okay.
major
All right.
comments.
Jeff, are you following this all right?
Yeah, yeah. Yep,
population,
Okay.
The
it
only
looks
co-
like there's plenty of room to pick up the 3 sentences that are on page 14 and put them down here on population growth, so that, you see what I'm saying? There's a big hole. There's 2 sentences on page 13 under population growth, and 3 sentences on at the top of 14.
Yeah,
And if that went down there, it would
Is
leave
that a
big hole.
format issue?
I think it's just a format
Just a
that needs
format.
to be moved.
yeah, we can clean that up. And if you have small ones that probably don't need planning board,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
can send those to us and we'll get all the formatting taken care
There
of.
was very little. and
Okay.
It was really a good document.
Yeah, I read through it and didn't have hardly any comments. All right, we're keep
Good.
going.
Yep. So nothing on 14 major.
14, yeah.
Unless there's comments. Uh,
15,
15, we modified the graphics a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah, that's better.
Very minor, but,
I really like that.
okay. 16,
16,
no major changes there.
we had some discussion on page 17, and I think you got it.
Yep, so we looked up some different, more positive terms for amenity trap
Yeah,
I saw
and
that.
renamed the paragraph and added a, kind of a definition for what an amenity trap is essentially.
We had a discussion while you guys were gone, we didn't know what an amenity trap was.
But I've since read the article where you pulled this. It was a very interesting article.
Yeah, so I think it's the first sentence of that paragraph is all we added, and then some minor rewording in it.
okay, economic, page 18.
Yeah, nothing on 18 on our end.
Oh,
Same with 19, nothing. Nothing on 20.
I have a question.
We got a question here.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yeah,
On 17, the amenity-rich places graphics, I know this is pulled from an article. Is there stuff in that graphic that we don't want to include in this document, specifically the every community has a choice? Does that fit here? I mean, you got amenity-rich places attracting residents, visitors, and businesses. Growth changes the community issue, but the every community has a choice. Does that belong in this document, or is that, does that add any value, or do you want it here?
you raise an interesting question. I put a question mark there on the other one, it should be every community has a voice, not a choice. To me, that's better.
But this is a graphic that's imported from somewhere else.
Yeah, but.
But did you edit it, because it's amenity-rich places is new, right? Didn't
That
it say amenity?
Amenity rich has always been on top.
Oh,
The figure name is the same as what the article called it.
okay, yeah, and that's okay, we could blue out over that, or maybe we can't, because we're using somebody's,
Graphic.
yeah, okay, maybe we have to, okay, that was it.
All right,
And honestly, we do, in the growth policy, every community has choice in
I
how
suppose.
it's done.
I missed that it had the specific source there, so.
We had a big discretion on what a amenity rich meant, but apparently it's a professionally used term.
It's real.
Yeah,
It's when you have a community that gets loved to death.
yeah, right. Okay,
Okay,
moving on, I'm on page 22.
yeah. I guess one thing. Going back to 19, there was a comment to add some credit to the planning board, as far as
Yeah,
short-term rental.
yeah.
So we added a sentence
Yeah,
mid-paragraph
right,
in
I
there.
got that.
I remember that.
Um,
23, you can see that the following is on page 24. And I don't know whether you want to try to bring wayfinding, the first paragraph down, but there's a big hole there, so.
Where are you talking now?
Well,
format.
there's challenges here, this is on the bottom of page 23.
Oh, 23, yeah.
Yeah, we'll
There's a
check.
big hole there, and then you've got a little window up here,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
says the
Well,
following.
We'll update
But
the
but you
format.
got 22, you got the changes in there.
Yep,
And design on 23. Sandy wants to move the following back to page 23. You see that?
At
Yep.
least that, yeah.
we'll check that. Okay, then I think our next change was down a few pages where we had page 27.
Page 25.
But we didn't, yeah, if anyone else has anything on 25 or 26.
I'm sorry?
Unless anyone has anything on 25 or
No,
26.
I don't have any.
27, we tried to get,
We had nothing on 26. On 27,
we updated the figure label.
right.
Some people like it when you can use one for both, some don't. So I just want to make sure that above and below worked for you guys.
I thought it was pretty straightforward.
Okay.
On page 28, didn't we talk about a rendering for the?
We were gonna
pedestrian
change that
friendly?
rendering photo.
So that's a revised rendering. That's the only, we had 4 from the city of Dillon. This is the only one that somewhat shows the neck down from bump out back into standard curb.
Yeah, and what it is deep in the photo, the curb.
This is a different photo than we had last time, because it was
Yeah.
cut off on the right.
Yeah.
It still doesn't really show what we're trying to show.
Well, this is better than the last one, I will tell you that.
And we could try to zoom it in more and just focus on that one intersection.
You see what we're talking about there? So you have to really look at it to see what the bump out is.
Well, you know, I went online and researched bump outs, and there were tons and tons online
Okay.
that, there's a variety, so any one of those would be better than what we're looking at here, and I think they're very explicit. I think I gave a bunch of those to the mayor, months and months ago.
Okay.
So we're gonna do one of two things. We're either gonna expand this one so it shows better, or we're gonna put in a better photo, right?
Of a bump out.
A bump
Sure.
out.
Yep,
Okay,
we'll get that updated.
all right.
Next page, 29. Nothing there. 30. So under street lighting, on 29, we had a couple sentences deleted.
Yeah.
About dark skies and kind of speculation wording.
That the lights are gonna be too expensive to operate when go to dark skies downtown.
Yep, so that's gone now. Okay, now we're in promotion, so we didn't have anything else on 30.
Nope.
So 31, we added in the established in 2006 paragraph to kind of discuss the TBID district.
Mm-hmm.
And spelled it out. Thank you.
Yep, so if there's, that whole paragraph's new, so there's nothing there. And keep going with that. Next page, we didn't have anything. There was a comment on page 33 about the X's, but then the note that Dave left
Yeah,
was
I mean,
leave
I had
okay, so we didn't change them at all.
I might have had a senior moment there. I thought there was some rows that didn't have any X's, but that turns out to be not correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we didn't misinterpret that, so.
I think you had a printout that was funny is why.
I'm sorry?
You had a printout that was funny and didn't show it.
Yeah. And these X's, just to remind you, came from the open community public forum.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to goals.
Jeff, you okay?
Yes,
Okay.
Goals and actions, page 36. We didn't have any changes there. 37, we didn't have changes. 38, under promotion, we just added in a little wording on item 3, targeted marketing.
Right.
Yep.
More coverage of what we were referencing.
I had a comment on that. Is there, as I was reading through that, I was trying to make it simpler or less wordy. Is it still reading a little bit awkward to me, the way the sentence is constructed?
You're talking about number 3, targeted marketing?
Yes. I think I had a comment on that and a suggested wording that would make it a much shorter statement, maybe. And I don't have that in front of me right at the moment, but
Let me hang on here.
All I wrote was
and
that it was gonna.
and I can't read it right now on my screens or what the existing wording is, but when I was looking at it earlier today, it still seemed a little awkward and maybe an overly long sentence, but
Okay, I can read what you put. Seems to have repeated phrase, and I think targeted marketing, additional marketing efforts should be made to lessen the downtown dependence on Yellowstone National Park, Beartooth Scenic Highway, and other adjacent lands. And then in red, you put visitation from Yellowstone Park, the Beartooth Scenic Highway, and Red Lodge Mountain. That's a very long sentence. And
Yeah, I think
and stabilize seasonal viability by drawing year-round visitors throughout Rocky Mountain West, as well as around the country
so
and the world. I mean, that,
I inserted Jeff's wording and
Yeah.
it was almost,
yeah,
it almost made it longer, so I took what, like Yellowstone National Park was an ad, public lands was an ad, so I tried to condense it all into essentially the same sentence,
okay.
but we can try to reword it again.
What's his suggested rewording is, as I read farther down here. is additional marketing efforts should be made to stabilize seasonal variability by developing events and activities in addition to Yellowstone National Park, Beartooth Scenic Highway, and adjacent public lands that draw year-round visitors from throughout Rocky Mountain West, as well as around the country and the world.
And world.
It's a little cleaner.
That is a lot cleaner.
Okay, we'll get-
This is a couple words.
Do you have that from Jeff? Or I can. send
Yeah, I thought so, or maybe I misinterpreted his comment, but yeah, we've got his comment.
His suggested rewording?
Yeah, we'll add that.
We'll see how that,
Oh, no, that takes care of it. I didn't realize there was suggestion rewording,
Yeah, yeah.
so. that's good.
Okay, Jeff, is that right? Did I read that right?
Yeah, you got it right. I think the main point there, the other main point I was trying to make was you're looking for marketing opportunities in addition to the current things that attract people to Red Lodge. And I think when it said made to lessen, I think that the dependence on Yellowstone Park and Beartooth Scenic Highway, it may seem to sort of minimize the value of those things. So that's why I kind of inserted the word in addition to in my suggested wording.
So Greg, just to be clear, you've got his suggested rewording,
Yep,
or do
I
I
just-
need to send it to you?
I just found it, so we're
Okay,
good.
All right. Okay. Moving on.
Okay,
Favorite word.
the only thing on the next page, which is page 39, was just defining National Park Service, NPS. Conclusion, so page 40, we just did our spell checks and caught all our typos.
it isn't even yours, isn't it? It's downtown revitalization.
Yeah, we made our own graphic for it, and so it
Yeah.
created some typos, but the one thing we didn't change was one edit was to delete very strong patterns. We didn't delete that out just because it's a quote from the revitalization plan. Just so everyone's aware.
And we didn't make any changes in Appendix A because that's directly from the public meeting. That is what it is.
Yeah,
From the focus groups.
exactly.
And I think that's important to include all that in there. Okay, Chelsea, any thoughts, comments, additions, something we may have missed?
On the whole, it looks really good. I'm pretty happy with it. I was gonna say, if you want, I can go get some greener photos now.
And I gotta tell you, the photos that you
Provided
were tremendous.
It was a beautiful day. It was nice to
Yeah.
go take a walk.
Yeah.
It was a hardship.
Marnie?
Now, I just said to her earlier that the photos really nice, but other than that.
Sandy?
Nope, it's good.
John,
I
it's
thought you
good.
did a great job.
Susan? Jeff, anything?
Yeah, I had one suggested question, I guess, on page 9. It references that since 1974, Red Lodge has had zoning. And I'm not sure if that date's correct. I know that we didn't have a growth policy until 1995, and we developed city zoning after that. So 1974 would actually been county zoning, or it would have been under, I think you might want to just double check that 1974 date.
Where did you get that?
It's, I think, I can't, let me, open up. Yes. so
That
I
was
can-
our inherited document.
Oh, all right, I asked them where they got it, it was an inherited document, so maybe you're onto something there, can we,
It's
We-
been carried forward.
Yeah, we carried it over from Great West, so we can check it.
would you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a question mark there.
Remove first adopted in 1974 and leave normally updated.
Yeah.
I'll be after I need to tell them when you have
Yeah,
it. Like-
yeah. Anything else, Jeff?
No, it looks, these final edits, final document looks good to me.
Okay, so what's the plan now? We're gonna have our public forum on our next meeting, correct?
I don't know that we can do that, because we've got to have a 15-day notice before you have your public hearing.
That's right,
Is that
and I didn't bring my calendar with me,
That's
so
correct.
So the soonest it could go into the paper is next week.
okay, do you have a calendar?
I can make one up. Okay, so that's where we are.
Today's the 11th, so we're gonna meet again on the 25th,
So it will go into the newspaper on the 19th,
and our next meeting's the 25th.
right?
When it goes 1, 2, so you could do it you could do it on the 8th of July,
So July 8th
Ninth.
will be,
July 9th, sorry.
I'm sorry, July 9th will be the public forum for the downtown
Public hearing.
public hearing, okay. Okay, and if we can do it like we did the growth policy, I'm not anticipating a lot of input. But whatever input we have, once we close it, this panel, this board can discuss, change or whatever. But I would like to send it to council on the 9th. Is that possible?
On the day of the public hearing?
No, you could send it on the 10th, because 9th is the public hearing, if you.
No, but we can make a motion to send it.
Oh, gotcha,
on
gotcha,
the
gotcha.
10th.
As amended, yeah, if needed.
It's technical. I mean,
Yeah, and depending on the nature of the comments, we
Yeah.
can gauge how long it's gonna take us
Yeah, I mean,
to-
if there's something that was gonna require us to investigate, debate, that maybe. But I would really like to send this to council on the 9th.
And then,
Jeff, are you okay with that?
A motion to send it to council.
Yeah, my only caveat is if there's something major that comes up in the public
Right.
hearings that we need to think through, but I don't
Yeah.
anticipate
I
that.
don't anticipate it, because the public has been involved with this one as more than any other one we've ever done.
And you always have the option of tabling it to the next meeting if there's more comments to do it, but you don't have the option of doing it in reverse.
No, I get that. Okay, where's
So
your
you
calendar?
make sure you have
Yep.
one.
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. I have a busy day.
You want June or July?
Our next meeting is in June.
Our next meeting is June 25th.
Okay, so June 25th,
She's out Friday.
we don't have growth policy, and we don't have downtown master plan. What do we have?
pizza.
Huh?
Pizza, she said.
Pizza. What do we have?
we don't have any applications right now.
Okay,
So-
one item on the agenda will be this board has thought about some of their bullet points for for their growth policy, and we can have that additional discussion with you and
You mean
Jeremy.
zoning?
Zoning, I'm sorry. Yeah. That'll take 15 minutes. We
Yeah,
don't,
right.
we don't have any conditional use or whatever.
Can you start to look at the request from the city on the specific zoning things, like, for instance, zoning for marijuana ordinances? Is that something you can start to discuss at that point, or no?
All right, then we're putting the cart before the horse for the zoning that we're gonna get from WWC. Are we not?
I don't know, is that,
We could have the discussion.
Yeah, Chelsea.
I honestly am with Al on this, I think you let WWC look at it, because there's gonna be some legal pieces with the marijuana that needs to be in consideration. And I'd rather have the professional planners that are more familiar with the laws look at that first and then provide their recommendations.
I'm just thinking, if we have a process here, and our process is WWC is gonna go through this document, they know what our bullet points are, I'd like to see what they come up with, and then discuss them accordingly.
so if I'm translating what I'm hearing correctly, the stuff that council relayed on to you are gonna be bullet points for WWC to look at.
Yeah,
before they
and
bring it
then
to
we'll
you.
discuss them. And that's what I tried to do half an hour, 45 minutes ago.
And what we could do is ask them to review that first and send that while we're waiting for the rest? Is that, if you
We
want to
could, yeah,
expedite
you
it?
know, yeah.
You know, there is-
Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Messy.
Um,
I mean, I think it's more efficient, in my opinion, to see everything at once rather than piecemeal it. I think
Yep.
I would rather get you our recommendations for everything once and then we go through it. That's my
Kinda where I am.
opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too.
I like the pizza.
Because I think
Well-
the important part of that too is that we can also work with Dave, we can work with Brian, we can work with city attorney on stuff that we come up with, and we kind of vet that prior to you even getting it, right? So we've already done kind of that legwork essentially, so that once you get it, I feel like you're gonna get a clean document that has been reviewed by Dave, reviewed by Brian, reviewed by legal, and, you know, based on what we're proposing, right? And then
Yeah.
as you go through changes to that, you know, the final document after you've gone through it will be, you know, we'll do that again, essentially have legal review it. And then before you go out to any public hearings and start that public process.
Okay, well, what I'm getting at here is, I think we do have at least one agenda item, and that's to kind of pin down these bullet points, make sure. Because we're required by state statute to have this meeting, right? We can't postpone it because.
Only one a month. We're only required one a month, right? Do you know?
I think, are you talking about the downtown master plan?
No, we're
Well,
talking about how often
I'm
we have to
talking
have
about
a
our
planning
next
board.
meeting,
Oh.
if we don't have a
July
legitimate
25th.
agenda item,
Just
do
cancel
I
the
just
meeting?
cancel the meeting?
I think you're.
You're actually only technically required to have a planning board meeting once a quarter.
I wonder
So
if
you-
our bylaws say once a month, but once a month is sticking in
That
my
sticks
mind.
in my head.
Yeah, the bylaws might be different, but state law requires a legal planning board to have a meeting once every quarter.
I
So,
think we've met that.
so, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself with staff communication, but, if our only agenda item is bullet points for, zoning, we could do that at the end of the public forum meeting.
Yeah.
Could we not?
I think you could.
Jeff, do you have any opinions on this?
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I think, if we don't have anything really to discuss the next meeting or the 25th, that I don't see any reason to, have a meeting, and that as long as we've got enough time to discuss the bullet points at the July 9th meeting after we get through the public hearing, and then, any further discussion about the downtown plan before we make a
Is it
motion.
premature to cancel the meeting now? Should we give
I
it-
think we say pending no applications, because what if we get an application that comes in?
Okay, and at what point do I notice the board that we're not gonna meet? Because if they're like me, if I know I don't have a meeting on Wednesday night, I'm gonna probably make plans to do something else.
Well, is the Friday before not soon enough?
Well, I'm trying to be fair to the members here.
You know, no, you say pending an application, and the application comes in, you don't have any pending.
No,
And
we don't have anything right now that we anticipate coming to light in the next 2 weeks, Jeremy?
No, and I mean, anything that comes to the board is gonna be, you know, conditional use permit or something that's gonna have to be an advertised public hearing, so.
Anyway,
No, I mean, if we did get anything in the next 2 weeks, it'd have to be bumped to the July meeting anyway. So there's nothing that I'm aware of that is gonna be coming in front of the board anytime soon.
The thing that I can see that'll be scary is if it comes in
What is it, July?
and the
9th?
turnaround is that same meeting that
July
you're
9th.
there,
yes.
that you're doing the hearing the 11th.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me do this, following the agenda, any other staff communication updates?
Nope, that's it.
Any petitions?
I
or-
would just like to note that you guys probably deserve a meeting break just because of all the hard work that you've put in the last year on this growth policy and downtown master plan.
I think
So
we
I
need
might-
more than, I think we
I
need
might
more than
encourage you
meeting.
to take a vacation for one break or one planning board meeting.
Okay. I know what you're gonna, go ahead.
I just pulled up the bylaws, and any future meeting may be canceled by a majority vote of the members present at any regular scheduled meeting and or by written notice of the
I'm gonna
chair.
call for a motion here in a minute.
I would move,
I'm not
Too
ready.
early?
I'm not ready yet.
He said he'll entertain it in a moment.
Staff communication and updates, anything? No?
Nope, no application.
Petitions from the audience? Anything? Old business? I would entertain a motion to, cancel the July meet.
I would so move.
Is it,
June 25th. June 25th.
The June 25th
June 25th meeting, is that it?
That would be the meeting that we would.
I would entertain a motion to cancel the June 25th meeting.
I so move.
Second. I got a Conley moved, Gray second. Any discussion? Jeff, anything?
No. Sounds good.
Roll call, please.
Gray?
Yep.
Tupin?
Yeah.
Eccles Bell?
Yes.
Boise?
Yes.
Conley?
Yes.
Di Benedetto?
Yes.
Bloomer?
Yes. Okay, do we have to make a public notice on that? You don't?
We only have
I
the public
think-
notice meetings, not lack of.
Yeah,
I mean,
I will figure out if there's a way we can do it as far as,
And maybe I'm just overly sensitive here, but hardly a day goes by if I'm not walking the street, somebody has something to say about the planning board. Most of it is 100% good, but there's people watching, and I wanna make sure that we
Follow the rules.
Yeah.
follow the rules and, we don't have to make a note, because people know we meet on the second and fourth Tuesdays of
yeah.
Wednesday.
And then worst thing we can do, we can put a post and say there is no meeting this night.
Yeah, okay, okay, any other business? Jeff, anything?
No. Sounds good to me.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. Hope you had a good vacation.
I did, thank you. You guys have a good weekend and, we'll definitely see you in July if I don't talk to you before.
All right, Greg, thank you as well. Anything else from anybody?
Nope.
We're adjourned.
Wow. Do you remember if we need to fix the map? I'm gonna have to take a good look at the map.
This map.